My name is Denise Boggs. I was a friend of the Lamb family. And I want to tell you what happened just 2 days before Marcus passed.
I made the choice. I was wrong. It's my fault, and I'm so sorry I did.
Marcus Lamb cheated on Joni Lamb, and it wasn't just a one-time mistake, it lasted 7 years. That's a long time to live with betrayal, especially in a marriage that was supposed to be built on faith and Christian values. For those 7 years, and even after the affair ended,
Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of Daystar following the death of his father.
Sure, on camera, they held hands, prayed together, and acted like everything was perfect. But that's Daystar's brand, keeping up the image of a strong Christian couple. Behind closed doors, that's a different story. Joni was hurt. She was broken. No matter how much she smiled for the audience, her marriage was forever changed. And that right there explains why, on his deathbed, Marcus didn't turn to Joni, his own wife, to share his final wishes about Daystar. Instead, he reached out to Denise Boggs, the family counselor. Now think about this. In a marriage where there's real love and trust, wouldn't a husband's dying words be shared with his wife? Wouldn't she be the one he confided in about something as important as the future of Daystar? But that's not what happened. Just 2 days before he passed, Marcus made this call to Denise, and in a moment, I'm going to let you hear exactly what he said. I won't lie. I have so many questions about this audio, because what Marcus told Denise, it doesn't line up at all with what Joni Lamb claims were his last words about Daystar. So which one is telling the truth? Let's take a closer look.
Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of Daystar following the death of his father, that Marcus had given a clear directive to the family and to the board that I would succeed him as president. Jonathan's disappointment in not getting his way only deepened when I married Dr. Doug Weiss.
My name is Denise Boggs. I was a friend of the Lamb family. And I want to tell you what happened just 2 days before Marcus passed. I received a call, and the call was him on the other line. He had one of his girls to dial my number. And he said, Miss Denise, I need you to write some things down for me. I said, okay, Marcus, I'll be glad to. And he said, you know, Joni and I have built Daystar, but I really believe it's time for me to say that we built it so the children could carry it on. And I said, okay. And he said, did you write that down? I said, yes. And then he said, well, first of all, there's our son, Jonathan, and he would be the first one that needs to step in and carry things on. He's the first lamb.
Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of Daystar.
And then there's his wife, Susie. She took his name, Susie Lamb, and she'll be beside him to support him. I said, okay. And then he said, and then there's Rachel Lamb Brown, and she will be beside him on the other side, helping him to keep everything going. And I need to make sure now you're writing it down. Yes, Marcus, I'm writing it down. And then he said, then there's Rebecca Lamb Weiss. And she will be like on the other side, like Aaron and her, holding up Jonathan's arms. And her husband, Jonathan Weiss, will be alongside her to help her. Are you writing that down? He said. I said, yes, Marcus, I'm writing it down. And so when he finished, I knew he had left someone out, but I did not say anything. And I knew that there was some deep pain because of what had happened in the family. And I knew that that's probably why he did not mention Joshua Brown. But I did not question him on that. This was his time to speak from his heart and not be controlled or manipulated in any way. And I said, okay, I've got it all written down. And he said, okay, thank you. You make sure it gets where it needs to go. I said, okay, I will. And so he hung up the phone, or he had someone else to hang it up. And then I did submit it to different family members. I told Joni about it. I told Rachel and I told Rebecca about what had happened. So they all knew.
I remember hearing Marcus say on TV many times that he was preparing Jonathan to take over Daystar one day. I watched it myself and heard him say it clearly. So how did things change so drastically? How does a mother turn against her own son and push him out of the ministry his father had been training him to lead? And all of this, just because of her new marriage? What's the real reason? Because he wouldn't sign an NDA? That's truly heartbreaking. Honestly, I keep wondering, why didn't Denise Boggs record that phone call with Marcus? It was about his legal wishes for his family and for Daystar. If she had an audio recording, no one could twist the truth. But even without it, one thing is certain. Marcus knew that Joni wouldn't have the strength to do what was right. That's why he confided in Denise instead. Even though there's no recording, I believe her. You can just feel her sincerity when she speaks. She genuinely loves God, and she's not trying to gain anything from this. She's simply telling the truth. She is a true woman of faith, and it shows in everything she says and does. One thing we can't ignore is that Ms. Boggs spoke to Marcus over the phone, not through email. And that's important because emails can be faked. Scammers do it all the time, making messages look like they came from someone they didn't. So if there's an email out there claiming to be from Marcus, I'd be very skeptical.
Daystar made the decision to terminate my son, Jonathan Lamb's employment. That decision was not taken lightly. It followed a 15-month review of Jonathan's performance and his refusal to take any steps to satisfy a detailed performance improvement plan put in place. He also refused my offer to participate in a formal mediation to resolve grievances in a biblical and professional manner.
Joni Lamb claimed that Jonathan rejected her offer to resolve things in a biblical and professional way. But when you actually look at the leaked documents, it's clear that her version of events doesn't match up with reality. One of the conditions she gave Jonathan and Susie was that they will keep disagreements about theological opposition to the marriage to themselves privately. Now let's be honest. The Christian community already knows that Doug Weiss and Joni's marriage was not done the right way. There was nothing biblical about it. So was this really about biblical resolution or just about forcing silence? And it doesn't stop there. The document also states that Jonathan and Susie will keep disagreements about Doug's divorce to themselves privately. But the real argument wasn't just about whether Doug's divorce had biblical grounds. It was about the shady way the whole thing happened. Something about it felt off from the start, and now they were being told they weren't allowed to question it. Then there's this part. Jonathan will accept the existence of the marriage, support her in the marriage, and accept the fact that Doug is her husband. Will keep disagreements about the marriage to themselves privately and keep any and all negative feelings or opinions they have against Jimmy Evans to themselves privately. So how exactly was this a biblical way to settle things? This wasn't about reconciliation, it was about control. Jonathan and Susie weren't being invited to resolve anything. They were being told to submit, to stay quiet, accept everything without question, and pretend like nothing was wrong. At the end of the day, Joni wants to be seen as the voice of God, and in her mind, Jonathan and Susie were just supposed to fall in line. To wrap this up, it's clear that Marcus wanted Jonathan to take over Daystar, not for Joni to push him out, which is exactly what she and her new husband, Doug Weiss, eventually did. She didn't want to pass the torch to her son, she wanted control for herself and Doug. Marcus's original vision was for Jonathan and his sisters to work together to lead Daystar into the future, continuing the legacy he built. But because he never had a will clearly stating his wishes, everything was left open for interpretation, and Joni took full advantage of that.